Feeding yourself is easy. You find food, you eat food, done. Feeding 10 people, manageable. You share your ration, someone goes hungry, probably Jerry. At feeding 1 million people every single day in a city with no refrigeration, no supermarkets, no trucks, no anything, that is either the greatest logistical achievement in human history or the most ambitious dinner party ever thrown. Rome did it anyway. At its peak, around 100 AD, Rome was home to roughly 1 million people. That's more than any city on earth would see again for over 1,000 years. Get an idea, each Roman needed roughly 1 kilogram of grain per day just to survive. Multiply that by a million, that's 1,000 tons of grain every single morning. Before anyone's even asked about wine. So Rome solved the problem the way Rome solved most of problems, by conquering it. Egypt alone supplied roughly one-third of all Rome's grain. North Africa, modern-day Tunisia and Libya sent even more. Sicily, Sardinia, Spain. Rome didn't just have a food supply, it had an empire worth of food supply. Every year, an estimated 400,000 tons of grain made its way to Rome by ship. The Tiber River became the world's first industrial food highway. First, the Annona, Rome's state-run grain distribution system. The government didn't just hope food showed up. It organized. Grain was imported, stored in massive public warehouse called Horrea, then distributed to Roman citizens often for free or heavily subsidized. At its peak, around 200,000 Roman citizens receive a free monthly grain allowance. The ferment issue. Not charity, political strategy. Hungry citizens riot. Fed citizens mostly don't. Rome had hundreds of massive warehouses, Horreas, scattered across the city and along the Tiber. The largest, the Horrea Galbana, could store tens of thousands of tons of grain in a single complex. These weren't just big rooms, they were engineered for preservation. Raised floors kept moisture out, thick walls regulated temperature. Romans didn't have refrigerators, but they understood why grain spoiled, and they built against it. Here's the part most people missed. The big ocean ships couldn't actually get to Rome. The Tiber was too shallow, so everything was offloaded at Ostia, Rome's port city, onto smaller river barges, then hauled upstream. This relay system moved hundreds of boats per day. It requires dock workers, warehouse clerks, grain inspectors, car drivers, and a small army of bureaucrats making sure nothing disappeared. And a lot of it, inevitable, did disappear. Corruption was basically a line item in the budget. So Rome had grain, mountains of it. But was everyone just eating plain bread? Not quite, and this is where it gets genuinely interesting. Most Romans didn't cook at home, their apartments had no kitchens. Fire risk in a densely packed city was catastrophic. Instead, they ate at thermopolia, essentially ancient fast food counters, where pre-cooked food was kept warm in built-in stone containers. The Roman diet was grain, which is bread porridge, legumes, olive oil, salted fish, vegetables, and wine, usually diluted with water because undiluted wine was considered barbaric. Meat was occasional, spices were status symbols, garum, a fermented fish sauce, went on everything the way Romans used salt. And here's the kicker. Poor Romans often ate better variety than medieval peasants would for the next 1,000 years. Because Rome's trade networks meant spices, fish sauce, olive oil, and wine moved cheaply across the empire. Poverty in Rome was relative. You might be broke, but you could still get lentil stew with decent olive oil. Rome fed 1 million people through a combination of military conquest, state organization, engineering, and sheer logistical willpower. It wasn't perfect, there were famines, there was corruption, the poor still struggled. But for its time, it was unprecedented, and when Rome finally fell, when the grain ships stopped coming and the warehouse emptied, Europe wouldn't see a city that size again for over 1,000 years. If you found this interesting, subscribe. Next time, an entire Bronze Age civilization vanished practically overnight, and nobody's completely sure why.